My girlfriend faked a pregnancy to trap me in a marriage. I exposed her lies at a family dinner and walked away for good. I'm 29 male, and I've never been one to share my personal drama like this, but I need to get this off my chest. This whole situation is something straight out of a nightmare, and I still can't believe it even happened. It all started about a year ago when I met a girl. Let's call her S. At first, things were perfect. We clicked right away. You know how it is when it feels like you've found someone who just gets you. She was smart, funny, driven, and we had a ton in common. After a few months, we were inseparable, spending all our time together talking about the future. At the time, I thought I had finally found someone I could settle down with, but looking back, there were red flags I just didn't want to see. About 3 months ago, things started to get a little off. S began acting strange, dropping not-so-subtle hints about marriage. At first, it was all in good fun, or so I thought. She'd say stuff like, "Oh, when we're married, we should get a house like this, or our future kids are going to be so cute." I laughed it off, but as time went on, the jokes became more serious. She started talking like we were already planning the wedding, even though I had made it clear to her multiple times that I wasn't ready for marriage yet. That's when things took a turn. We were having dinner one night when she just dropped the bombshell. "I'm pregnant." I was stunned. I sat there, just staring at her for a second, trying to process what she had said. I wasn't ready for this. I mean, we'd only been together for about a year. My career was still a work in progress. I was trying to get my finances in order, and having kids was definitely not part of the plan right now. But S was so calm about it, like it was no big deal. I could feel my stomach drop as she continued. "I guess this means we should start talking about a wedding date," she said, almost casually. That's when the alarm bells went off in my head. We talked about this before. I told her I wasn't ready for marriage or kids. But here she was, using the pregnancy as a way to push the idea of marriage on me. I didn't want to accuse her of anything right away, but something felt off. Still, I told her I'd support her and the baby, but I wasn't going to rush into marriage just because of the pregnancy. She didn't like that. I could see it in her eyes, the flash of frustration she tried to hide. It was quick, but I caught it. Over the next few days, I kept asking her questions about the pregnancy, but she was always vague. She hadn't been to a doctor yet, and whenever I suggested we go together, she made excuses. "I've been too busy," she'd say. "I'll schedule it soon." But it didn't make sense. I mean, if you're pregnant, seeing a doctor is one of the first things you do, right? It started eating at me. Something wasn't adding up, and I wasn't about to just sit there and let her keep dodging my questions. One night, while she was in the shower, I did something I'm not proud of. I went through her phone. I didn't want to, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something. And sure enough, there was nothing about a pregnancy. No text to friends or family. No Google searches about being pregnant. It just didn't feel right. A week later, I confronted her again. She started getting defensive, saying things like, "Why don't you trust me? Do you think I'd lie about something like this?" She was deflecting, and I knew it. So I told her that we needed to go to the doctor now. No more excuses. She tried to put it off again, saying she wasn't feeling well and wanted to wait. But I wasn't letting it slide anymore. I was done playing along. I needed the truth. The next morning, while she was at work, I went to her place and found the proof I needed. There was a pregnancy test in the bathroom. Negative. That's when I knew for sure she had been lying the whole time. I felt like the ground had dropped out from under me. I couldn't believe it. She'd lied about something so massive just to manipulate me into marrying her. I confronted her that night, and at first she tried to play it off. "The test must be wrong," she said. "I'm sure I'm pregnant. We need to go to the doctor." But I wasn't buying it anymore. I pressed her, and that's when she finally broke. She admitted she had faked the whole thing. She thought that if I believed she was pregnant, I'd feel pressure to propose. She said, "I knew you'd never commit unless I gave you a push." I was furious. Betrayed doesn't even begin to describe how I felt. I had trusted her, and she had used that trust against me in the worst possible way. I needed to make sure everyone knew what kind of person she was. That's when I made my plan. Our families were already scheduled to have a big dinner together to celebrate the baby. I knew it would be the perfect opportunity to expose her. I wasn't going to let her control the story. She had lied to me, and she needed to face the consequences. So, the night of the dinner, we're all there, my parents, her parents, a few close friends. S is playing it up, acting all nauseous when someone offers her a glass of wine. I just sat there, waiting for the right moment. When the conversation quieted down, I stood up and said, I need to tell everyone something. S froze. She knew what was coming. Everyone else just looked at me, confused. There's no baby, I said. S lied. You could have heard a pin drop. Her parents looked at her like they couldn't believe what they were hearing. My dad just shook his head. S, for her part, tried to play it off like I was the one who was crazy. What are you talking about? She said, her voice shaky. Of course I'm pregnant, but I wasn't letting her twist the truth anymore. I found the pregnancy test, S. It was negative. You've been lying this whole time. Her face went pale, but she kept trying to salvage the situation. The test must have been wrong, she stammered. I was going to go to the doctor next week, but it was over. No one was buying it. I looked at her parents, and they just shook their heads, disappointed. I'm done, I said. You tried to trap me in a marriage with a lie, and I'm not doing this anymore. S lost it then. She started crying, screaming at me, saying, you'll regret this. I did this for us. You never would have committed without it. Her dad tried to calm her down, but she wasn't having it. She just kept screaming, calling me every name in the book. I walked out. Over the next few days, S tried everything to get back at me. She showed up at my place with her bags, claiming her parents had kicked her out and she had nowhere else to go. She was crying, telling me I couldn't just leave her like this, that I owed her after everything we'd been through. I wasn't falling for it. I called her parents to check the story, and of course, they hadn't kicked her out. It was just another manipulation. When that didn't work, she started telling our mutual friends that she'd had a miscarriage. She tried to paint me as the bad guy for leaving her when she was grieving. But by then, the truth had already come out, and no one believed her anymore. Even her closest friends stopped talking to her. She had burned all her bridges. Her final move was calling my parents. She told them I had abandoned her after she lost our baby, trying to guilt them into turning against me. But I had already told them the whole story, so her manipulation didn't work. My parents were furious. My dad, who had been neutral about the whole thing at first, said he always had a bad feeling about her. In the end, she was completely alone. Every lie, every trick she tried to pull just backfired on her. No one believed her anymore. She was left with nothing. As for me, I'm doing all right. I've reconnected with friends I had distanced myself from during the relationship, and I've been focusing on my career. My family has been really supportive. And I'm just glad to have the truth out there. If you're reading this, here's my advice. Trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. Don't let anyone manipulate you into something you're not ready for, especially not with lies. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them, so please leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this one.